Welcome back to the Keto Bistro. It's Sunday and I'm doing a little bit of meal prep. So I'm browning ground beef in both of these pans. I have a pot for some vegetable soup, and then I have a pot for make 2 of these casseroles for the pizza peppers, and I have videos for those, but those are some of my favorites, especially to take for lunch. Okay, so my ground beef has finished cooking, and of course I seasoned it with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder as the meat was cooking. I've separated it into 2 stock pots for chili and vegetable soup, and I will can those. I also made 2 batches of pizza peppers, 1 to freeze and 1 to cook now. Go ahead and with the meat while it's still cooking in the chili, add some onions, fresh onions, and get those caramelizing with the ground beef. And then I'll start adding the tomatoes and vegetable soup. So I have my vegetables already chopped up. So these are the fresh vegetables that I'm going to add to it. I have a half an onion, a half of green bell pepper, and a third of a head of cauliflower. So I'm going to go ahead and add those in. I'm going to turn it on medium. I'm going to add a little bit of avocado oil because I have drained the ground beef, and most of that was lean. It was 93%. Anyway, make a large pot because I'm going to can. So the vegetables are starting to caramelize and cook in the avocado oil and the ground beef. I'm going to add, and this is my seasoning, it's basically Italian seasoning, salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder. I'm going to add that in. I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons. In because it has basically all of them, all of the seasonings that I primarily use, and vegetables infused together so they start incorporating because your cauliflower and your onions will pretty much take on the flavor, most of the flavor from the other in the stock. So I'm going to add my tomatoes first. And then I'll use the cans to add water. Just to get the rest of the tomato flavorings from the can. So I'm going to add a half a can of water from each of the canned tomato cans. So as those start to cook, you'll see that the tomatoes start to fall apart. I will go ahead and start crushing them with my wooden spoon, but you'll have peelings from the end, even though it says they're peeled. So I usually remove those as I go. So I will just chop these up, and when you chop these whole tomatoes up, it releases a lot of the juice. So I've removed some of the peelings to throw away. You'll get more as you go. Most of the tomatoes have that right at the end where they were stuck to the vine. So I turn the heat up to medium high. I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients. So the black beans, the drained green beans. Oh, my pizza peppers are done. So I'll show you what those look like. I'm going to go ahead and take those out. So those are excellent. Perfect if you love pizza. Those are good. Actually a little bit better. They do not have the breading, but they're delicious and they're easy to take for lunch. So I'm going to continue adding the rest of the ingredients. All I need now is the chicken broth. So some of the broth will cook out as you go, but this is a brothier vegetable soup. And for the last ingredient. I'm going to add 1 beef bouillon cube. So I'm going to leave it on medium-high, 15 minutes. Okay, on medium-high, I brought it to a nice boil while it was covered, so I'm uncovering it just a little bit, let it cool down, put it on simmer. But you can see how everything's starting to incorporate. And I may add a little bit more broth or water depending on how much evaporates. Okay, now I have my crock pot ready to go, so I'm going to can 6 cans of the vegetable soup and 2 cans of the chili. You just want to make sure that you pack it, let the air bubbles out. It just keeps it from, and the chili's really the only thing that needs it. I'm going to do the others. Just keeps it from letting the bacteria grow and seal well. You'll want to leave an inch spacer at the top. In the bottom of the canner. So I'm going to use my Instapot. It has a canning feature, and they're hot. And it's cooked, so you're not going to really need to cook it, pressure can it as long. But I'm still going to do 60 minutes, an hour. I'm cleaning the tops of the jars with vinegar. I've already cleaned them once. I'm just going to go around. You just want to make sure it gets a really good seal. Make sure that your jars are cleaned. You can do them on the top rack of your dishwasher. You can use your Instapot or your pressure canner to steam them. Same thing with your lids. You want to make sure everything is sterilized. So I'm going to put the lids on and get everything ready to go. I've just taken 4 out and I'm getting ready to put 4 back in. So I'm just going to tighten them, fingertip tight. Now because of expansion, they will get a little bit loose when you take them out. So they're almost, see, they're just real loose. Now also, sometimes the jars will seal inside and sometimes they won't, so you might hear some popping, and that's great. That's what you want to hear. The second batch has been on a little over 20 minutes. So make sure you put the pressure valve on airtight. The first batch I set on an hour, 60 minutes. This batch, because the soup was a little bit cooler, I went ahead and put on 65. Thanks for watching. I would love for you to subscribe and follow for new information, recipes, and ideas.